Yes, welcome one and all to the Square D GAA Tactics and Analysis podcast with your host here, Paddy McGill, and the great Stephen O'Mara. How's life, Stephen?
Not so bad, not so bad. Here having coffee and leftover Easter eggs, sure. How bad can it be?
Yeah, exactly. I've had about 10 of them myself at the weekend. So another 2 stone on. Great stuff. Okay, so it was a weekend of high drama in the provincial championships. New York defeat Leitrim in the Big Apple on Saturday night. A historic day for all the great Gaels across the Atlantic. In Munster, Clare beat Cork. But on tonight's show, we are focusing on the West. And just for any of our new viewers, what Stephen and myself usually do is we dissect 2 matches that were aired on one of the national platforms over the weekend. Sometimes it will be one. And I suppose the big game yesterday in McHale Park, Castlebar, Davy Burke's Roscommon coming out on top over Mayo 2-8 to 10 points. Remarkable. Edwin McGreal's tweet last week, he said, 7 days away from the Roscommon game, it is worth remembering an incredible stat. The last 3 times Mayo won the league, they were beaten in Connacht by the Rossies. 1970, 01, 19, and he said there might be an ambush. So 3 has become 4. I'm a history teacher, and you're often telling the students history repeats itself. What did you make of it, Stephen?
Yeah, obviously, we're a new historical ground here. I wasn't sure. I mean, if I was a manager, I'd be half tempted to treat the provinces like, you know, the pre-season tournaments. And I don't think it's beyond reason 1 or 2 might do that. So we didn't know, but you could see by the reaction of players, and Davy Burke literally almost danced a jig or some version of it after. So at full time. So I think everybody wanted to win the game as much as they ever did. I think maybe this time next year, when the psychological elements come full circle, it could change. I remember Len Gaynor, the first year the backdoor came in and hurling, and they were beaten in the first round of Munster, and he gave a post-match interview as though they were out. And then at the end, he said, "Oh, well, look, so we're still in it. I don't think we should be, but sure, we'll dust ourselves down." So, look, they went back, they got the honour of the final, and were beaten by Clare, I think, for the second time. So, look, there's all that. Look, the Rossies, over the last 10 years, I don't have figures on it, they've won more games in Connacht. They were the underdogs in, and they've done it again. Intriguing game. I think you're looking at 2 of the top 3 or 4 coached teams in the country here, maybe possibly the top, certainly 2 of the top 3 probably, certainly 2 of the top 4 or 5. And I suppose, look, if we look here, we'll see, I suppose, the ultimate key factor on this, and we've got to give credit to Roscommon, huge credit. I put up stuff after 5 games of the league on the expected score per 10 phases, and there's a misconception that Roscommon had the best defence in the league. They didn't. They just have slower build-up play, so there's less phases of play. So when you count it per 10 phases, they had a more or less average defence. But what Mayo had was, they were scoring 4.7 points per 10 phases, which is outrageous. The average was 4, obviously. And they were the only ones massively above it. We see here, you know, they've kept Mayo to 2.8 points per 10 phases. An expected score per 10 phases of 3.1. And just to give a context for that, the lowest in Division 1 up to 5 games was Donegal at 3.3. So that's a phenomenal defensive display. Now, I will always say, as an analyst, I'm always conscious of game-chasing territory. This is around 65, 66 minutes. It's maybe a truer reflection when it's 12-9. And it's an expected score per 10 phases of 3.6 to Mayo. They've shot under total score of 3.2, which is key. So ultimately, it's not, you know, Mayo, as we'll see at the end, maybe they badly managed the last 6-7 minutes, really badly, certainly compared to the Jim Gavin Dublin, which is always my benchmark. But still, to keep them an expected score of 3.6 when the average was 4 in Division 1, even up to the game chasing period, that's really impressive. Their expected score per 10 phases bang on that 4-point average. So that's for me is, you know, hats off to Roscommon. They've got out against the offensive outlier of the National League, and they've turned their figures into somewhere between the average and, say, Donegal, who were the lowest by a long shot. So that's real hats off to Roscommon in that regard.
let's go back to the start of the game. And I know a lot of Mayo GAA people, and they hate it. They often say it's lazy analysis, boring cliches, same old rhetoric. But we talked about history repeating itself at the start. In these big games, Mayo do so much right, Stephen. You know that. They do 90% of things more right than other of the top teams, okay? But they do have a tendency in certain games over the past decade where there's little periods in the match where they completely dominate. Again, going back to that part, well, the dude doesn't always manifest itself on the board. We saw that again really yesterday in the first 20 minutes. And I'd imagine, Stephen, as a coach or a manager, if you're on, I'd say it leads to the match when it's not on the scoreboard, because that's what it's all about.
Yeah, and again, one of the key things of this show, I suppose, I'm keen to avoid the winners good, losers bad rhetoric. And ultimately, you know, I think the game could have gone very differently. That's the first thing I'll say. We look at this expected score chart. Mayo absolutely battered Roscommon for the first 15 minutes. You can see there again the expected score, what you'd expect to score, distance multiplied by pressure. All things being equal, Mayo should have been hitting 3.6, 3.7 points there after 15 minutes. And Roscommon were still below 1. You see the numerical terms here. Like if I see this chart after 18 minutes, even without seeing the game, or 16 minutes, I'm going straight to the bookies, or going online these days. Mayo 6 phases, 6 shots. Expected score per 10 phases of 5.7. Roscommon 1 phase from 6 shots. Expected score per 10 phases of 1.3. The expected score is 3.4 to 0.8. And it's only 1 point each. So it's the first 17, 18 minutes was actually a masterclass by Mayo in everything except shooting. And I'm going to look, and I want to just say it as an overall, and my analysis of the game ultimately comes back to that figure of Roscommon stifling that superb Mayo offence. But I do think that could have gone wrong, nearly did go wrong for Mayo. Like even early on, and this wouldn't be factored into the expected score, there's a fairly straightforward hand pass there by O'Donoghue into Conroy, and they're in for a one-on-one. Tommy Goals, as he's known as, probably only one thing going to happen if that hand pass is delivered. That's not included in that expected score of 3.4 to 0.8. And we'll even going away from that, you go at the end and we'll look at the feature, like a point in it with 64 minutes here. Like that's a free all day long. Now it's a smart free. It's Enda Smith. I've come to have a huge admiration of this guy during the league that I've maybe missed in the past and shouldn't have, but did. That's a free, should be a point with 5 minutes left. So I will say, I think anything that could have gone wrong for Mayo did. And despite analysis to the contrary about the backdoor cut on Roscommon's second goal, ultimately it looked like a JJ Okocha to me, that being a situation that looked promising, but ultimately was low percentage. Backdoor cut was played into a guy with a sweeper swarming towards him, got blocked, landed perfectly, and really good strike. And ultimately, look, guys like me, we try to make football a game of chess and tactics, and ultimately it's good footballers. And a lot of a village man of yours, sports historian Conor Curran, tells a great story about I think a county semi-final with Ardra, and he saved a shot and he was on the ground and the ball landed on the edge of the square, and all your man had to do was tap it into an empty net. But he never played soccer, and he went to pick the ball up and he got swarmed. And Conor tells this story with great hilarity. All he did is kick the ball in the net, and you've got to give credit to Roscommon where the chances arose. That boy who played Ardra in the county semi-final probably would have picked that ball up and got swarmed. He pulled on a first-time goal, probably played soccer. So, Roscommon took the chance when they came. But ultimately, there was little things swung their way, notwithstanding brilliant game management we look at. But this first 18 minutes, if Mayo score that goal that hits the other side of the bar, if O'Donoghue doesn't miss that pass to Tommy Conroy, we could be looking at 2-2 to a point here after 15 minutes. And we're saying, why were Mayo so good? And what I'd say, these are the top coach, 2 of the top handful in the country coaching-wise. This is Jurgen Klopp, Liverpool. And this is rare. It may even be unique in Gaelic football. We see here Roscommon come out of the back. And we'll see at the start, the white lines represent marked men, to simplify it. The ovals there are spare men. So Roscommon, no drama here. 2 extra men. But you'll see here, one of the Mayo boys pushes up here on the white arrow. But it's still, this is classic soccer, 5v4. This is what modern soccer is all about. Requires world-class skill in soccer to get it right. Just requires a bit of know-how in Gaelic football. Playing the ball out, keeper still free, happy days. Ball gets hit across. We'll even see, I think it's Jordan Flynn, obviously a tactical decision, right? We tried to press, I'm not happening. I'm now sweeping off the weak side, which is to say the ball's going over to left corner back. The press looks like it's over. I'm getting back to be the sweeper. But watch this Roscommon man in the oval. He's key. And there's a second lad further west of him. Ball goes across. Note what happens here from Mayo. And this is brilliantly constructed from a coaching point of view. Look at Aidan O'Shea. Tucks inside the keeper. Look at all the Mayo men. White line, getting in, getting to a man. And one of the key coaching points and get the modern coaches, and Davy Burke's team are, as I say, are so right keen to do all the simple things right all the time. Width, paint left or chalk left, paint right. And you see Roscommon have all this width, and that's fine. Except Mayo are a step ahead of them here because they're leaving those wide men in dead space. I always coach this. The first thing I coach any team I get 5 guys against 4, and I tell them you've got to get the ball out past the 65. And you let them at it, it's chaos. Then you talk about paint left and right. But what it evolves to is the 4 start getting smart and seeing this guy out of paint right. We can actually, if the ball goes all the way to paint left, he's 70, 80 yards from the ball. So what if we make it that he can't receive that pass? And that's exactly what happens here because you have 2 Roscommon boys hold their position at right corner back, but the Mayo boys shift across. And what happens? Sorry, second element of that, Mayo invite Roscommon to go into fake space. I put up a tweet about that. Did it 4 times in the opening quarter in the league game when Mayo went 6 or 7 points up. The Roscommon man takes the fake space, gives Mayo more time to set up. Jordan Flynn at this stage realises, well, hold on a second here. There might actually be a press on here. He gets back up. There's still 2 Roscommon men over at right corner back. And now Aidan O'Shea's marking the keeper, and Roscommon are in a position you absolutely don't want to be in. They're man on man. They have to play the ball out from the back. They have a weak link, which is the goalkeeper. I don't mean that goalkeeper. Goalkeepers in general, unless they're Ethan Rafferty's, are a weak link playing the ball out man on man. They're not inter-county outfielders. They're goalkeepers. Now Roscommon have to take the ball out from their own 14. Take it on Mayo, lads. Dublin and Mayo are the last 2 teams you want to be taking the ball on man out of the back. And now you see the key that it's only the penny only dropping on one of these Roscommon boys now. I actually need to come in and relieve the pressure here. But it's too late. Roscommon man has taken his man on. Probably should have come in field, even though it was a bit riskier. And ultimately, what have Mayo got? Fake space. That Roscommon man is running down the left wing. The space is getting narrower and narrower and narrower till he gets the hand on, flick, and they've got the ball. Brilliant turnover, free straight off that, put it wide. But if Mayo had won the game, and I was going on the winners good, losers bad kind of analysis rhetoric, that play, that is how Jurgen Klopp's teams come to dominate football. And now they're all catching up. But that was brilliant. And there was a few of those. In fact, that hand pass that O'Donoghue missed to Conroy came off high pressure up the field. So that was just phenomenal. And I haven't seen that to date in Gaelic football. I've had a few goals at it with teams and maybe not had the success of what I like, but that's top notch.
You said there, you said there, like, it turns into fake space. That's interesting because I was watching Celtic and Rangers on Saturday, and I don't want to digress too much, but Rangers went for a full high press, and at stages were causing Celtic big trouble. But when Celtic did break out of that, they're beating 4 to 5 Rangers players. It doesn't become fake space. So what my point is there, that's actually incredible from Mayo, that even if Roscommon do pass some of that high press, they still have so much to do there. So it's just really choreographed by Mayo, isn't it?
Incredibly choreographed. And it's brilliant. Now, look, there was a Roscommon man in the middle of it. Maybe could have done a sidestep and come back in field at 45 degrees. Fake space wasn't the only option. It was the obvious option. It was the easy pass, thinking, maybe the opposite of John Daly. I think of John Daly, we looked at him last week, and John Daly probably would have seen a bit riskier to sidestep and cut inside, but I will for greater value. The obvious pass that 99% of the lads probably would have taken was the free man out the wing. So yes, and when there was a great article, I think it was Shane, is it Keegan, was involved at Wexford Youths and Galway United. I think he did it on the 42 last year. Brilliant piece when Liverpool beat United 5-0 or something. And United were trying to get this high press, but they got it wrong. And it only takes one weak link. You know, and I've been critical, and I may be again of Aidan O'Shea defensively, given the messy role, but he's in there. He's in there, tucking inside the keeper. He knows what's going on. He's getting it right. And listen, this requires good coaching and good diligence. I tried this with, I won't say which one to embarrass them. I tried this with a college football team before, and you never got together, walked through over in Leitrim on the way to a championship match against a Connacht team, and I mean, it was like Father Ted and Dougal. It's not the first card. I played the first card. Why would you play the first card? Play the second card. And it's like, no, it's over there. You get inside the goalkeeper. It's not as simple as it looks. I can tell you. Even when the coach has it all up here, it's not as easy as it looks. You've got to give credit to the coaching staff and the management. But that's brilliant. And as I say, had Mayo got even their 4-1 expected score rounded up by 14 minutes, never mind, maybe they could have been 1-4 or even 2-4 in a best case. That's what I would have been saying. And they turned them over 5 or 6 times. Sorry, gotta say 4 or 5. I don't have full numbers on it. My recollection was at least 4, maybe 5 high press turnovers. Had they won, had expected score gone in the first quarter, that's what would have been the winning of the day.
Yeah. Shane Keegan, he's very impressive. Love listening to him when he's on. Speaking of impressive, Roscommon's game management / cynicism, maybe? No, is that I don't like. I hate that term. I'm not a fan at all. It should be taken out of the GAA dictionary. What do you think?
Well, I think it should be rechanged to the Oxford Dictionary. Not to digress here, but the school of cynics in Greece, where the Doubting Thomases, before Doubting Thomas came along, we don't believe anything until we've seen the evidence. I love the Greek school of cynics. They're my favourite philosophers. The word has been misappropriated through 3,000 years. And I do think we need a better word, because I actually put a tweet up. I don't normally tweet during the game, but it was just jumping out at me yesterday. People assume that you equate cynicism with a negative kind of attack on whoever you're talking about. When I talk about cynicism, it's the ultimate compliment. Now, there's levels, you know, there's ethical boundaries, and, you know, some of what Italian soccer would take it to, you know, putting lads' armpit hair on corners. I wouldn't coach that. But if you can make a 35-minute game that on average gets played, there's 23 minutes in play. I got some stats this morning. They're a few years outdated, but up 2014-16, it was 23 minutes a half. If you can, as Roscommon did, if you can get that down to 19 minutes of ball play, absolutely, why wouldn't you? And bizarrely, I've just put up a tweet, and it'll current team the show about the refereeing, and I just felt he wasn't up to the standard of the tactics and the cynicism in the game. I put up a tweet saying, you know, there should be 10 minutes injury time here for the amount of delays. And apart from being accused of being a Mayo man by what I presume to be a few Roscommon people, because I dared to suggest this, I think, did you say 75,000 views? Considering I have 1,400 followers, that has gone viral in the true sense of the word. So we can't not talk about it. Now, look, there's 2 or 3 elements, and I suppose if I was to sum up this game with one image, bear with me for half a second here. You may have got a sneak preview there.
Everybody has the moral compass out when their team's playing. Like it is. If anybody wants to understand or know what virtue signaling is, just watch Twitter or social media after a GAA match that has any shred of controversy at all. My team would never do that. And when your team does it, you're jumping around the place, celebrating it, endorsing it.
Absolutely. And look, if there's an image to sum up this game for me, it's probably this one here. Because, you know, it's a Roscommon sideline. Murta has pushed O'Shea in the back to goad him. But watch who has the football. It's the Roscommon backroom team. There's Davy Burke in the middle of it, the master tactician. Roscommon backroom has the ball. Normally, you'd be trying to give it back to your man quickly. No. We're just delaying. Now, O'Shea is being goaded. He's taken the bait. Who has the ball? Look at the ball there in the background. It's still the Roscommon man. So now, that sort of stuff is kind of out of anybody's hands. I will say, and going back to the referee, you know, an element of it, Mayo took the bait. An element of it, you know, it needed to be refereed better. There's no nice way of saying that. You know, Mayo have a 45 here. Aidan O'Shea is well within his right to go looking for that ball. He's not pulling, he's not dragging, he's not pucking anybody. He's just looking to get the ball, you know, and 3 different Roscommon lads firing him into the hoarding, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them standing over him. Now, that's just, the referee in there is insufficient to deal with the situation. But again, something to go back to Jim Gavin in Dublin. They study the referees. They know what they'll get away with. Chances are they wouldn't do that if David Goff was refereeing. They've picked their battles. And ultimately, you know, when we look at it, and there's some figures here, and this is a tactical masterclass. And again, I say this, if there's any doubts about me being complimentary here, you know, not so long ago, I managed a team into a huge win in a championship knockout game, and we were 1-0 down on 29 minutes. And I was delighted because I just figured we could win the game in the second half. We were 3-0 down at halftime. They got 2 points before halftime, and we went out and won the game with 6 points. So ultimate compliment that they've done this, that they've got away with. It's smart. But just to give a bit of detail on this, Roscommon had possession of the ball for 13 and a half minutes in that first half. Mayo for just under 6 minutes. So it wasn't just the cynical slowing the game down at all costs. It was slower phases of play. One of them was over 3 minutes long. And so that's 19 minutes compared to your average 23 minutes, 19 and a half. But the key is, if you look at the game they played, the first game in the league, and there were 85 phases of play. Divide that by 2, 42 and a half per half. Phases of play in the first half was 29. So it was a masterclass in cynicism by Roscommon. And I'll just give a quick breakdown here in case there's any doubt about the Freds, because I'll give you the delays here. The first one's a row. Assume either Roscommon started it or I couldn't see off screen. If I don't state otherwise, slow down by a row, a guy tying a shoelace, referee shouldn't be stopping the game for that. An injury, not a head injury, referee shouldn't be stopping the game. Head injury to Roscommon, row. A row started by Aidan O'Shea, so he was getting rattled. No value in that. You know, that's what Roscommon wanted. Row, a head injury. So they were all the delays in that first half. And ultimately, as I say, if you tell me I'm playing into a huge wind in a 70-minute game and we can get it down to 29 phases, it's brilliant.
Happy days. So the second quarter, what changed? Did Mayo start to panic, get desperate? Maybe again, wrong phrase there.
It's I suppose. Look, two things happen. I think. Yeah, it's 1-1 after 18 minutes. And again, I said this before, and again, I think you initially took it as maybe a bit of an affront to Roscommon. For me, it's the ultimate compliment that they're just so right keen. I think the Armagh game in the league swung more on what Armagh did wrong than what Roscommon just set out so brilliantly, efficient. And as I say, when I played poker, more or less professionally, I wasn't a great poker player. I just sat there and waited for other guys to make mistakes and played a perfectly sound, solid, unspectacular game that I didn't have the ability to play. I'm not saying Roscommon do or don't. I'm just saying that it's 18, 19 minutes and it's still 1-1. Roscommon have been a bit lucky. Even 3-1, 4-1 wouldn't have been a disaster. That's the expected score. But we'll just see here. First thing that jumped out at me was Mayo started hitting 1 or 2 erratic plays, you know, erratic shot here. And this is the stage where you've maybe settled down. They start hurrying too much. That's a really low percentage shot over blocking hands. Get a ball here. We go side to side. No, I see half a gap. I go straight into it. Always going to get swallowed up. Got turned over. But I suppose the second point for Roscommon probably illustrates it the best. because at this stage, and Mayo were trying to do the right things, but Roscommon have possession here. And bear in mind, one of these phases took 3.5 minutes, mostly in their own half. What happens? Mayo have tried to press. They're driven back. Where do Roscommon go? Backwards. Back to the keeper. And all of a sudden now it's taking Mayo time to press back up. Don't let them have the ball. And we see Aidan O'Shea is up here 1v3. Now, I'm not going to be too harsh on Mayo because this happens in the heat of the moment. And you need a few seconds to get back up and reset. And you can see O'Shea is trying to get reset. But ultimately, what happens if we look at the fact that it's Aidan, and this isn't a fault as such with Aidan O'Shea, maybe a little bit. It's more a structural thing. But this is Roscommon's brilliant game management. It's 1-1. They're getting panicky. They're after hitting 2 panicky bits of play that they got turned over, a shot wide on. What do? Suck them in, keep the ball. Roscommon keep doing everything theoretically perfectly sound, if unspectacular. Now Mayo come up the field, but watch it. Aidan O'Shea is now on the Roscommon 65. And I thought Conor Loftus got a forensically unfair doing on the Sunday game last night, because O'Shea is now breached, having tried to step up. Conor Loftus has to step out. Now Mayo are defending man on man. Maybe just a bit of just straight up basic defending not done correctly here, because that Mayo man was goal side outside the 45. Now he's not. Ball played in and he's fouled. Here you see Dermot O'Connor, one of the most intelligent footballers in the country without a shadow of a doubt. A few minutes later, he's up at the ante. He's saying these lads are going to hold the ball all day. It's 2 points to 1. So I'm going to try and do something proactive. And on the laws of averages, I think what he's doing here is correct. Even though ultimately I'm statistically marking a grade 2 breach, which led to a goal. I think in the balance of averages, it's correct. He's saying they're going to hold the ball all day. He tries to force the man down the line. He basically says, and again, I'd calculate my analysis. I would say the laws of averages, O'Connor gets breached here. I'm counting, there was no score, and Mayo scored on the turnover. That breach was a sound, successful defensive breach. When you get into the real money ball of the data, which I have within my software, he gets breached. Loftus is still in place, but just at this moment, and I will say this about Roscommon, and there was a member of the Galway backroom team when I was there, did say to me, figured Roscommon had more natural football than Mayo, and I didn't believe him at the time. I actually see where he's coming from, because when those little opportunities arose, Roscommon had the guile and the skill to take advantage, because watch, just little John Daly-esque flick. O'Connor is sent the wrong way. What have we got? Conor Loftus has to abandon sweeper again. Comes out. It's man on man. Backdoor cut. Ball across the square. Foul for a penalty. So that's how now notwithstanding the second goal was lucky. But again, when the opportunity arose, brilliantly taken by a guy who's obviously played soccer, and that's a skill set. Well done. But that second quarter, yeah, it was Mayo trying to get that, force the game. Brilliant game, and I think the game managers of Division 1 are Roscommon, and that's how they got that lead, albeit with a bit of luck into halftime.
I know you want to look now at Roscommon's kickouts. You felt maybe one or two of them might have been a little bit fortuitous, but I'm not going to use the word Roscommon win the game. We've already thrown terms out like cynicism, but we've explained that one. I'm not going to use the word lucky, even though I've just mentioned it. I'd rather be lucky than good. The kickouts.
A little bit of both. More, I will say less of the lucky, but a bit maybe. I mean, we look here. Intriguing here that Roscommon gave up the kickouts, because in the National League,
are these Mayo kickouts? Sorry,
that's Mayo kickouts. So yeah, and I'm just going to digress briefly, because in the entire league, taking it to Donegal games, I never actually did Roscommon Donegal, so to keep it consistent and taking it to the league final, Mayo scored 322 off 70 short kickouts. I conceded 13 of the turnovers. They're profiting 0.23 per short kickout. And they broke neutral on long kickouts. 1-8 scored, 2-5 conceded. So the decision for Roscommon to give the kickout up was an interesting one, which I would have maybe encouraged. I won't get into it at time, score deficit parameter, that you'll happily give up that 0.23 if it's slowing the game down in a huge win. But ultimately, Mayo didn't profit off those short kickouts particularly, which is interesting. But But we'll see here if I can get my image back up. Bear with me a second. Yeah, what we'll see here is the Roscommon kickouts went really. Sorry, Paddy, bear with me half a second here. And there's a bit of, if in doubt, bang it down the middle, but as ever, it's really well constructed. So look here. This is the Mayo kickouts. Let's look at the Roscommon kickouts. Like, they haven't got many off short. Like, to go straight, and look, the obvious thing here is a great story by Connemara school teacher told me in 6th class about the fox and the cat, and what do you do when the dog comes along? And the cat says, I run up the tree. And the fox says, you've only got one way to get away from the dog. I have 147 ways to get away from the dog. And the cat goes away feeling a bit stupid, and next day the dog comes along and the cat runs up the tree. And as he runs up the tree, he sees the fox in the dog's mouth. i.e., give me one plan that works ahead of 147 that don't work. And Mayo, Roscommon, and I'm a big fan of this, if in doubt, bang it straight down the centre. Now, that's an unnaturally high, that's beyond coincidence. Well, it's not mathematically beyond coincidence, but it's unlikely to be a coincidence that there's so many greens won by Roscommon. But we'll see here into the wind. Again, this is brilliantly strategically planned by Mayo. They've decided they're committing 9 men, which is a really aggressive press. Like, you know, 4-4-4 is normally the height of aggression. This is 9 and more behind. So there's 5 inside. There's 6 inside there, 3 outside. And what's brilliant here again, we look here, Paddy Durkin's in, he cheats again. I'd be critical of the keeper maybe at the last second. He doesn't clip this short because the man is there. But with Mayo going zonal, the point is, you have this bank of 3 here outside the 45. The Roscommon man is actually goal side. So they generally had the extra man under the break. And also here, see these 2 boys here. It's Dermot O'Connor again. And look, you could argue either way. He goes back to mind the house, but it does leave Roscommon with an extra body, and he takes himself in under the break. So, and he won it. So it's probably not a coincidence that Mayo will have gone in saying, let's force them long, and well done, you did force them long. But equally, Roscommon have done really well to generally have the extra body under the break in the first half. In the second half, just dogging this and a little bit of luck. Again, you'll see that 9 men committed. It was this time it was a 4-1-4. And then again, you have to give credit again to the football skills. You can do all the tactics you want. You can't be pure class. Enda Smith won 3 of those clean out of the sky. Roscommon won 6-2 on breaks, but Enda Smith won 3. And I mean, you look at that. That should be that image should be on any kid's wall in their bedroom. Just the raw skills of it. But it was an intriguing dynamic. It was an intriguing dynamic in terms of how they forced them long so much. But ultimately didn't get the value off because Roscommon scored 1-2 off those long kickouts and conceded 2 points. So ultimately something that Mayo would have felt, really well constructed for Mayo to force them long, ultimately didn't get the value off it.
Okay, fair enough. Just more details, maybe go back to the fouling, compare the fouls for both teams.
We look at just a little detail. I'm going to go into the main, the main body here is what Roscommon did right. And we see here the Mayo shot map. There's the squares are dead ball. There's one out to the right. Reap had a crack at it, but probably shouldn't have with the win. I don't know well enough, but on the laws of averages, that bottom right is a low percentage free. One's a 45. There's 3 frees there. One of them was unnecessarily conceded. The other 2, there was a man kind of running at them. They weren't those really negligent frees. But we look at Roscommon's shots here.
Have you got a map? Yeah.
I do, and I'm well spotted, Paddy. I do that once a show, Paddy. I'm only testing you to see if you're still with me. So sorry, you see there, Mayo shots.
My screen actually. Yeah, I'm good there, and we're up there now. I can see it. So you see there. Yeah.
Mayo didn't get a huge amount of frees. And what they did, only one of them was unforced. Roscommon, here's their shots. You see 3 frees right in around the D there. There's a penalty, which we're going to look at. There's another one that missed out to the left, one just outside the 45, really dead central. Like, Mayo gave away a lot of unnecessary frees and a penalty. You know, and I'm going to compare this to one image for Roscommon in a minute. Like, we've looked at this move forensically for the penalty, and we're going to finish the show with it. But that's a really difficult shot. He's just sidestepped back against himself. He's on the back foot. There's two lads coming in to block him. That's a 25% shot at best. There's probably better value in putting that over the bar. Don't stick out your foot and block him. They both did. There's two lads guilty of the foot block there. We look here. They've tangled him up. Don't have your hand on his back on the ground. Handy giveaway free. Here we are again. Rarely I have a negative thing about Diarmuid O'Connor. Hand on the back, and there's three Mayo men around just when he's under pressure. Again, maybe not a coincidence as Enda Smith. Here we are again, pushing the back. He was going nowhere. And here we are, you know, again, a really good defender, Paddy Durcan. Again, Enda Smith, maybe the common denominator here. But again, look where he's running into. You don't need to put your hand on his back. And there's been a feature of this league. Kerry have been horrendous. Monaghan have been poor enough. Somebody else comes to mind. Here's Mayo. Roscommon have been the outlier on this. Look at this. Now, Tommy Conroy ultimately gets the score, but look as he shifts the weight inside, expecting to get the contact. No, look at the Roscommon man. You can just see arms are up, and that's coached. That's the little intricate detail that's coached. And if Mayo had done what that Roscommon man does there on those 6 occasions, chances are they'd have conceded maybe 1 or 2 points. If they're really unlucky, they'd have conceded that goal. But on an expected score, no. Conroy nearly falls because he's expecting he's not diving, he expects the contact. He's putting his body in, expecting the contact. Doesn't get nearly falls. Brilliant score, brilliant footballer with phenomenal balance. But it goes from a 97, 98% free that most defenders give away to probably a 65% shot because he was off balance under pressure hitting that shot. And I just thought again, the little details of Davy Burke, that's you see it there, top notch, didn't give away the frees, and ultimately possibly the key difference on the day.
You were very impressed with Roscommon's defence, weren't you?
I was, and look, there's possibly the kryptonite for Mayo, and I suppose I saw Kevin Walsh having his book. I saw it on a website somewhere recently about, you know, just dropping off and showing Mayo what he calls sewers, or you go down the sewer and you can't get back out, like fake space, hockey calls it. That's the term I use these days. I will say there's possibly a problem with Mayo, and as well, this is the key point of the game, maybe, notwithstanding the fact that, you know, the patterns we've looked at, and Mayo could have won and could have been nearly out the gate by 18 minutes had things gone a bit better for them in terms of the final piece of play. But I do think there's a bit of an epidemic in Mayo football of running into fake space. Couple of guys I coach in Carlow who played for Carlow under Poacher and had it half a year with me pre-COVID. They went to the Mayo final this year, the club final. They were aghast at how cheaply possession was given away. Now, that is coming from the Carlow post Stephen Poacher, Turlock O'Brien extreme to the other extreme, which is the Mayo. But funny, I had a conversation, which I think is quite telling about Mayo. And you can see the fake space on the image coming to us. And I was looking at getting a friendly year or two back in Mayo, but I didn't want the top end team. I wanted a lower senior team. I was looking at scoreline. One of the teams that was recommended to me had actually just drawn with one of the top teams in Mayo. And I said, I don't think. And I rang somebody I know in Mayo and I asked them, and I thought it was really, this isn't some gobshite now. This is a very respected Mayo football person. And he said to me, and I thought it was very telling, he said, I'd write that off. It was windy day, and they got 15 men behind the ball. Almost as if that doesn't count, you know, because they're not used to that in Mayo. And I remember thinking, like, are you wondering why Tyrone are beating you in All-Ireland finals? And you nearly feel sorry for the coach coming into that culture, because it's like Meath. There's a much better version of what Meath do, don't get me wrong. When it works, it's brilliant. Like, I'm seeing fake space all day here. Check back, give that to the D. You can see the spare Roscommon man swallowed up. Right now, I'll come back to the Mayo piece on that. But if we look at Roscommon and how did they get Mayo, who were scoring 4.7 points per 10 phases, down to less than 3 over the course of the game? This is brilliant. You know, Mayo look like they've got Mayo or Roscommon without a sweeper, and they have. But what Roscommon are doing forensically really well. Watch who comes off to intercept this ball. I think it's O'Shea is coming out. It's the second man marker, so they're gambling on coming off their own man to swarm. Little pop pass in. It's not the fullback who intercepts that ball. It's the next man who came off his man. I wouldn't coach that. I'd be too maybe conservative or too rigid. I'd be wary that a good forward would get the pop pass and slip it out to the man whose man has come off him. But that's really top notch. And also, you've got this Mayo culture where, you know, matches into 15 men blanket defenses don't count. And they're trying to play the way they always play. And you see here, this looks like a good kick pass in. Look at all the Roscommon boys leave their own man, get back. All of a sudden, this classic Mayo football, full forward wins it, slips the hand pass out, he's still swallowed up. So it's a completely different model of defending than what I would coach, but the results are there from yesterday that it absolutely is working. And if I have a key question for Mayo, right? If I have a key question for Mayo, this is a really deep-lying zonal defense from Roscommon, deeper than they normally have. I would argue the only way to break this down is to go over and back 3 or 4 times and stretch them and stretch them and stretch them. Now, I maybe jumped the gun of still. I want to keep an eye on Jack Carney here. Mayo go across once, and this is coached. I know this. This is coached. Cut the line. This is where a player comes in from the sideline and he cuts in. This is called cutting the line. And the question this is straight off the training ground, no doubt about it. But something jumped out at me against Galway in the league final last week on a few of them that I talked about Niall O'Donnell and Shane O'Donnell and Donegal. They know when to cut the line. And I would have a value on them that's borne out in statistics, because when the ball goes through their hands, Donegal score more, far more. And it's often 7 touches back, 10 touches back from the score. But it's a mathematical point of fact. You can argue the probability on whether it was a coincidence. You can't argue. There's a sliding scale of probability. Was it a coincidence? Was it because they're doing something right? I just felt here, certainly in the second half, Mayo are on script, but maybe there's a Niall O'Donnell or a Shane O'Donnell type player, a Niall Scully, a Kieran Kilkenny, Matthew Tierney and Ian Burke, who spot when's the time to cut the line and when's not. Because Carney jumped out at me for his ability to manipulate defensive situations to his benefit, but there's no business cutting the line here. Look at how many Roscommon men are around, cuts the line, takes, and again, it's lovely. It's clearly off the training ground. First man runs on the arc. Carney's coming in off him. That's everything I saw about Carney that has me watching him very specifically. Handed back, but look at the wall of yellow jerseys. Contact. He turned over. Did really well to recycle it, but ultimately, it's the question I have. If I have a question for Mayo, it's have they enough players? I think Kevin McLaughlin was one. I think Killian O'Connor is one. Aidan O'Shea probably is one. With all these new young athletic players, the question I'm asking is, do they have the players that have the game intelligence and the game experience to know when to cut the line, know when to go over back, and pick the holes? I thought I had a few alarm bells against Galway, and looking there yesterday, I think there should have been 3 or 4 more crossovers there before they went near that. And I think this is now like Armagh. The way Roscommon are defending and jumping off men, going straight down the central channel, I think it's bad news. I think you've got to go down the channel. You've got to bring the ball back out across and get your score, attack the right to score the left. And I don't think Mayo did enough of it in the second half yesterday.
Yeah, and we're probably going to not know for a couple of years on how teams are actually going to approach maybe the provincial championships. You and I were talking off air and saying, who knows, some teams next year, I don't know. It's just a strange, I know it's new, but it's a strange structure, and it's we're probably not going to know for a year or two what teams are going to do. I mean, in a year or two, teams may go full pelt for the league and then ease off for the provincial championships and then come again for the championships. But I suppose the point being, we probably aren't going to know how this is going to manifest itself for Mayo for a couple of months. However, what you're saying is there's a few things, of game management and that. There's still a couple of red flags there for Mayo.
Yeah, look, that's a whole other conversation. I may do an article if I have time this week. I think the provincial councils have been hoodwinked. I think within a year or two, the provinces are going to be dead. If I was
probably
a manager,
it's gradual erosion, probably what we're seeing.
It's like when Man United didn't go into the FA Cup in '99 when they went to the World Cup in '99 or 2000. You can't go back. You devalued it, and you can't go back. It only takes one team. And if I was going to hazard a guess, I'd say it'll be a Tyrone or a Derry. They're really clinical thinkers. I think a Tyrone or a Derry.
Yeah, well, it's most likely going to be an Ulster team, given the battle royale nature of the Ulster Championship.
If I was
coming through 3-4. Imagine Jim McGuinness' Donegal having to come from the preliminary round. It's Monday. Imagine coming through 2 years in a row and then going to have to play a Champions League style format against the Kerry, Roscommon, and
It's exactly what I said about Len Gaynor with Tipperary. It'll take a year for the cogs to turn and people to realise, well, it didn't matter we were beaten in the first round of Connacht. Or we were actually better. If I was a manager, I would treat this like the O'Byrne Cup or the McKenna Cup. Honest to God, I would. I would say I don't care about provincial championship. That's maybe the dub coming out of me. You win 16 out of 17 or whatever. You don't care about them. Connacht and Ulster. But even I think you say Donegal, I think have an emotional attachment to Ulster again. It's psychologically it makes sense because when they won the 2 All-Ireland, they won Ulster. I don't think Tyrone care because they won 2 of their first 3 All-Irelands through the back door. We're all products of our environment and our own personal evolution. And I think it's going to take a few weeks or a few months for this evolution to come true. Now, that's a separate team because both teams went out flat to the mat to win this game yesterday. So it's neither here nor there in terms of this. Mayo, again, I think there's that enigma. Not unlike Dublin in some regards, a bit different before they started winning 12 years ago. I think there's teams that Mayo are set up to obliterate and there's teams that are set up to be banana skins. We've seen this before. I think it was at 17, they were taking extra time by Kerry or by Derry and Cork, who weren't high flying at the time, still came out and nearly beat Dublin and beat somebody else good in the set. I think it was that year to beat Kerry. I can't remember. So listen, I still think the laws of averages. If you play the first 18 minutes again, chances are Mayo are on top. The key thing was 2 or 3 of those chances they missed. If you take your expected score, which is 3 or 4-1 after 18 minutes, I don't think this game goes the way it did because Mayo panicked a bit. Roscommon's brilliant game management, brilliant setup. And it's obvious with Davy Burke is Jim Gavin-esque. Every situation is planned for and accounted for. Rory Gallagher is the same. Every situation is accounted for. And it fed into Roscommon's advantage because of the way the first 18 minutes went, which ultimately came down to Mayo shooting badly. So there is all that. I wouldn't be panicking for Mayo. I see loads there. It's good. But I do have the question mark. If Kevin McLaughlin and Cillian O'Connor aren't on the field, are there enough boys there with street smarts, the Ulster-style street smarts that are used to playing 15-man defences week in, week out, that have seen it 300 times? No, this isn't the time to cut the line. This is the time to recycle. Yes, this is the time to cut the line. If there's an Achilles, and I don't think there's much management can do about that because that's how Mayo club football is. So these guys aren't playing this week in, week out, and it's worked for them more or less over the laws of averages, even though they haven't won it all Ireland. It's worked for them. There are days it won't work. And I thought the last quarter there, a lot of, was a high-level example. And there was just, I could have picked out any, that's one I picked out. I could have picked out 10 over Roscommon and Galway game where I'm looking at saying, you've been coached to cut the line, but that is not the time to cut the line. That's the time to get the ball to one of your best players who will bring it down as far as a 21 and bring it all the way back out. And again, if we look, is it a coincidence? A final point on this. I've got to leave off the bit about the fact that Mayo had 3 opportunities to kick a point, 4 points down with a man extra on 68, I think 71 and 72 minutes. Should have popped any of those over the bar, pressed the kick out, extra man, still 4 or 5 minutes. I thought that was badly game managed. But if to sum up this whole thing to come full circle, I want to talk about Mayo. And people don't see a connection in this. Here's Ben O'Carroll. This is the go full circle of the goal. Now, common team here. Mayo hand on the back. Should have been a foul. Is Ben O'Carroll blindly going down an alley here? No. You go down and you need your Ben O'Carrolls, your Paddy McBrearty's, players like that have the balance and the ball skill to take a ball into a tight corner. He didn't have to go into that. He chose to go into that. And I don't think it was blindly. Attack the left to score the right. He goes into a double contact, knows he has the skill set to get out. What's he done? Inside that sector, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Roscommon, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, Mayo. What happens 40 seconds later? Penalty for Roscommon. Attack the left to score the right. Roscommon did it. Mayo didn't. And after that first 18 minutes where Mayo should have obliterated them, that ultimately was probably not that, and not giving away unnecessary frees was probably the key.
Okay. I think we'll leave it there on that one. So, look, Mayo, as we said, it's a huge win for Davy Burke, Mark McHugh, and everybody at Roscommon. So to them, and I know the two lads personally. So, look, delighted for them. Even though we're supposed to be neutral observers here. More on Mayo. Actually, just saw there earlier. They drifted out to 7-1 for the All Ireland. So, might put like 20-cent weekly betting allowance on that one. Tyrone Monaghan play next Sunday, Stephen. That's probably, there's not a huge amount of games on next week. I know Derry Fermanagh 30, Tyrone Monaghan's kind of the one on Sunday. So, principally speaking, it's probably the one we're going at next Monday. Yeah, I'd hazard a guess.
Yeah, I won't name my colours to the mast. Let's see what teams are put out, because don't be amazed if you see a reserve Tyrone team play that game. I know that's what I would do. And I think I kind of think the way those boys do in a lot of ways. Let's see. There may be more value in a Clare Cork if it's on TV, where it's two teams that need to win to be in the All Ireland. But look, we'll probably look at that. But look, we'll keep you posted.
We certainly will. Thanks so much. And in particular to any of our new viewers out there, thanks very much, Stephen, and to you wherever you're tuning in right throughout the globe. We'll be back next Monday, somewhere between the afternoon and the evening. That's it from the Square D GAA Tactics and Analysis podcast with myself, Paddy McGill, and Stephen O'Mara. Bye for now.